Norfolk Business Show with Danny Snelling. Sponsored by MT Comms.
Hello, Bob. Thanks for coming in. Bob Norman, everyone. Can you perhaps start by telling us all what you're best known for, past and present, if you like, and what you're up to now?
Well, within this area, I'm probably best known for being an ex-managing director of Radio Broadland, but that was 20 years ago.
No way.
Yeah.
20 years?
In terms of when
like
I was last
10.
MD of it.
Right, okay, yeah.
So Radio Broadland stopped broadcasting in 2008.
Yeah.
I was managing director until 2002.
Got it.
And now I'm back. Well, I've always been in radio. But now I'm back to launch Broadland on June the 2nd, very soon, Monday, June the 2nd, with an amazing lineup of presenters and who now have a real passion to getting local radio back. So a lot of work is being done at the moment.
Mm. Well, I only got wind of this a few weeks ago that it's coming back, as you know, so I'm thrilled to hear it's back. And equally, I'm sure a lot of our listeners will remember it fondly. And every time they sell, or every time a local radio sells, it always promises to try and stay local, but they never do.
They don't. No. And local radio has essentially disappeared over the decades. And there's very little commercial radio stations now that are local. Mm. Some claim to be, but they're not.
Yeah. Yeah, there is a Yarmouth one, isn't there, that I was a guest on not so long back, actually. And sorry, Sean Goodman had me on there, but I don't know if...
was it The Beach? No, because The Beach doesn't exist anymore either.
It was literally 2 or 3 months ago, but...
the community station?
Yeah.
I
just can't remember the name of it off the top of the head, but...
Yeah,
I mean, that you could truly say it's local. I know every time they have a radio advert on, it's local businesses in Yarmouth as well.
Yeah.
It's so local. But it's really, really good to hear you're bringing this back. And I know a lot of people in business as well who say their radio advertising back then was what really made them. And So tell us a bit about your past now, and what are you a local lad, or are you,
well,
how did you get here?
I claim to be local, although I was born in Morecambe.
Okay,
but I only lived there apparently for a couple of years, and my father was Welsh. My mother came from Thetford, so that's the Norfolk link. Mm-hmm. And my father didn't see me until I was 18 months old. Because both my parents left, they had nothing. They left school when they were 14. And he decided to go to Africa for a 2-year contract in construction, which he did. Obviously, when he came back, I was there. Mm-hmm. And he, with that money, bought a bungalow for cash, £2,000, as it was then. Yeah. And then proceeded to spend another 6 months in the country, and then went on for another 2-year contract. Came back and set himself up in business. So it was his way of doing it. And if you can imagine that era when there were no phones, no communications, hardly any letters even. Yeah. It was extraordinary. So that was in the 50s, 60s, early 60s. So quite an extraordinary thing, really.
Was it construction business he went in?
No, it wasn't. He was looking after the fleet of Caterpillar trucks. Oh, right. So he became a mechanic. He first left school. When he left school, he went into the army, and he was quite strict, brutal, and couldn't follow rules or anything else. He got promoted to a sergeant twice, got demoted twice, and eventually he became a turner, steel turner, set up a turning business eventually, and was also a mechanic and used to work probably 15, 16 hours a day.
I always like to delve on these questions because I've seen so many patterns amongst our guests.
Yeah.
And it seems to stem from their parents, and some, if not all, have not been given a silver spoon, but they've been given the right mindset, I think, to just work hard, you get reward, and just to have that spirit, if you like, to venture into self-employment or business ownership.
No, completely. He was had extraordinary determination and work ethic. So he'd work his day job, and then he'd come back, and then he'd do his mechanic's job, and it just continues every day almost. And I like to think that I take a lot of those values and use them. For example, I went 25 years without a day off sick work. It's that sort of feeling of, you need to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So a lot of that. But then again, he was too strict in many things, and he went too far. But I learned a lot.
Uni? Did you go to uni or anything?
Yes. So I was brought up in Thetford, essentially. So my childhood memory is Thetford, and I went to Thetford Grammar School. When I left there, I went to UEA. Didn't go far. And I studied. Sorry, I laugh because I studied maths.
Well, I don't think I've heard anyone yet say that what they studied is what they're doing now. So
I say maths because it's no use to man or beast. To be honest, it's so theoretical at university that it's nonsense. But I did it because I could do it, and I have not used a nano percentage point of what I studied at university at all. Some people say, but you must do. But you don't.
No,
it might train your mind to think in certain ways.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the age-old argument, isn't it? You're doing the kids' homework, trying to help them with the homework, and you think, why are they teaching them this? How are they ever going to need this in the real world? It's crazy when there's a calculator or a computer.
Exactly. It's just done in a completely different way now. So so I did that, went to UEA, and I stayed here. So I've lived in Norwich ever since. That said, I did live during the week in the Midlands for 15 years, managing radio stations.
Oh, wow.
Because I had to move out, because I had up to 11 radio stations reporting into me at one time.
Wow. So,
and I had various positions in the Midlands, in Birmingham, in Nottingham.
Was this a group?
It's a group basis. So because radio has consolidated over the years, and big groups have formed, and essentially now, predominantly in the UK, there's a duopoly. There's two radio owners that own probably 90% of the radio stations.
Wow. Obviously, Radio One or
No,
BBC.
No, not the BBC. I'm talking
because
pure commercial.
Commercial, yes.
So the BBC is funded by us with the license fee.
Yeah.
I'm talking commercial. So the two companies that own most of radio is Global Media and Bauer Media. So if you named any radio station, I'll tell you who owns it.
Which side they're on, yeah.
So it's just two-sided, and they have many millions and lots of marketing, and it's...
And how quickly has it turned into that duopoly, would you say?
Well, when Broadland was launched, it was launched in 1984. At a time, I would say, when there was no internet, no mobile phones, there was television, but there were 3 channels.
Yeah.
And there wasn't even breakfast TV anywhere. So you can imagine that. Radio was massive.
Of course,
It was absolutely massive. And Radio Broadland was sold in 1996. And then a series of other acquisitions went along. So in terms of the consolidation process, it's been continuous over that time. But the two big forces have come about it was a duopoly almost 10 years ago, and has been for a long time.
Yeah.
And they're able now to take all the local stuff away, because they don't have to. They're very good stations, don't get me wrong.
You can see how they do it and how it works, and hear how it works, can't you? And we're switching back to your local news, but it's just that you just don't get that conversation about local stuff going on anymore. You don't hear it anywhere. The best we get is the local news, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they have lots of advantage with the big stations, because they have one presenter across the country, like on Heart or Greatest Hits or Hits, and they have a big name, because they don't have to employ 40 presenters across 40 stations across the country. Yeah. So they consolidate it, get a big name in, but then I would argue that you lose a bit of feel and a little connection, because radio is meant to be a friend. Mm-hmm. So it's meant to, in my opinion, make you feel good about living in the area you're living in today, and to make you feel connected and actually have someone talking to you that you relate to, rather than someone so distant.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we talk too much about what's coming up for Broadland and the presenters and such, let's continue on this journey of how did you first get into the radio? How did you?
Well, I think an amusing story, because I left university, like everything in those days. I left thinking I don't know what to do, and I fell into at that time in 1981, when I left university, into accountancy, and I joined KPMG. It wasn't actually KPMG then; it was Pete Marwick's. That's where the PM came from. So I joined, and I was working on Holland Court in the Close, and I was with them for almost 9 years. Became a senior manager, and I always said I was going to leave once I reached the level I could get to. And I was fortuitous in that I got involved with a tiny company called East Anglian Radio. And East Anglian Radio, well, it actually wasn't even called that then. It was called Radio Broadland Holdings. It owned one station called Radio Broadland, but it was a PLC.
Really?
And yes, remarkable, with about 300 odd shareholders.
Wow.
It was a fascinating thing. And I got involved from the accountancy and advisory side. So in the 80s, I worked on it as one of my regular clients. And Radio Broadland Holdings then did wait for it, this tiny little company, did a hostile acquisition of Suffolk Group Radio. Suffolk Group Radio owned two stations, Orwell and Saxon. Orwell was Ipswich, Saxon was Bury St Edmunds. And that hostile acquisition, I was the lead advisor for, and they acquired it. And that was 1989, 90, and changed the name to East Anglian Radio, because obviously then they have three stations. That was the first small group, and it was incredibly successful. And I got to know the MD CEO at the time, which was Russell Stewart, very well known in the area. And I said to him, "You need to employ me." And I was, in those days, I was obviously, you feel you wouldn't want to do it again, but I was a bit cocky. I said, "You need to employ me. These are the reasons why." And I said, "If you don't employ me, this could happen." He bought that story, and the rest was almost history. So in 1990, I left KPMG to join East Anglian Radio, initially as finance director. And so I followed that period through. But what happened was I built up a relationship with the CEO, and we became quite close. And essentially I got involved in the general management side of the business as well. And then Radio Broadland, or East Anglia Radio, tried to acquire other small groups. Mid Anglia Radio, which owned things like Chiltern, Bedford, Northampton, that type of thing. And the deal was almost done. And then another player bought it overnight. It was horrible times in the hostile environment that existed in the 90s, called GWR, not Great Western Railway, but Great Western Radio. And that managed to beat us by an hour to the acquisition. It was that close. And they then in 1996 bought out East Anglian Radio. So, and I then moved up at that time to managing director of the station, which I was managing director of until 2002. That's still frighteningly 23 years ago. It's horrific.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I progressed in those groups. And those groups, GWR became GCAP from Capital Radio. It then became Global, and then I morphed into Bauer as well. So I've worked under Global Radio and under Bauer for many years. and I became a regional managing director, and I had 11 stations reporting into me. I even had a time when I got into programming as well, so I saw all sides of the business, and I became a regional program director to gain skills in that area. And again, there were the 11 stations, 11 program controllers reporting into me, which is significantly more difficult than 11 managing directors, because program controllers are very creative and artistic, but emotional. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
So I had that huge experience of doing that. And it just kept progressing on in terms of those big roles until eventually Global Radio tasked me with being managing director of Hold Separate. And the Hold Separate was the Office of Fair Trade said, Global, you've got too many stations, you're going to have to sell all those. And the stations were in the...
Sorry, who said that?
The Office of Fair Trading,
right,
OFT.
Yeah.
So they forced the big group to sell stations. They forced them to sell 5 stations in the Midlands, which was started my Midlands journey. And those stations were things like BRMB in Birmingham, massive station, Wyvern, Mercia, Coventry, etc. So they were 5 stations in the Midlands, and they said, you've now got to take them out of your business. They've got to be run separately by someone independent who doesn't report into you. They thought, well, because I had such a wide-ranging knowledge and I've done finance, general management, I've done programming, so therefore it was a good opportunity. And I led the sale process. So my job was to sell the stations, which is unusual. And it's probably the biggest point of my career. And all these presentations I had to do at the Bank of England, because that's where it was designated to be. It's almost like an independent place. It's a bit like football clubs having to play the FA Cup final at Wembley or something. Yeah. So these had to be done at the Bank of England. So I did these presentations, and eventually the other big group didn't buy it because they didn't offer enough. And the person that bought it was a person at the time, was the man, his name was Phil Riley, who created Heart Radio, then owned by Chrysalis Radio.
Right.
Now he set it up. He hadn't even got a company name at the time. Got the finance, bought those 5 stations, and I thought, right, well, this is such an amazing thing. I did very well out of it, and I thought, well, you know what, I'm just going to go off for a year, and go. I thought I'd be a ski guide. That's what my plan was. But Phil Riley then said to me, actually, I'd like you to do some consultancy work. I did 2 weeks consultancy, and then he said, you know what, I think I want you to be a regional managing director. I've never met him before, before that presentation. So it was just, you never know what's around the corner with anything. So you might as well be positive. You've got 2 choices in life, in everything. So you might as well be positive. And in that positivity and demonstrating what I was doing, he appointed me regional managing director. That was a small company called Orion Media. It was only set up to actually last for 5 or 6 years before it was sold. Build it up, build the business up, create an exit strategy, sell it. And I knew that at the start. And it was sold to Bauer Media in 2015, I think it was.
So do the same rules apply in terms of monopolising? You mentioned earlier they were forced to sell some off.
The rules are not as strict now.
Right. Yeah.
So the rules have come down dramatically, which is why it's enabled them to take away all the localness. When it was radio in the early days, Radio Broadland was controlled by the Independent Broadcast Authority, and those rules were extraordinary. They were right down to the building you had, to the wall thickness that you had. There's nothing now. There's those rules have all gone. So it's much easier. So it was harder then when they were put up for sale, but they've all eased now. So they still can't. There are still some restrictions, and it can still be referred to the OFT, but it's less likely now. But you can't own multiple stations in one area. That's the key. That's the key thing. but essentially, Bauer Media and Global Media have bought out almost everything. There's very few left. You've got the old company like Virgin Radio, but not a lot.
So the story of local radio as people from Norfolk would know it, you've obviously got your Radio 1 and Radio Norfolk, which are BBC.
Yeah.
What else have we had here? I'm just
Well, you have all the BBC stations that you can get hold of.
Thinking more times gone past. There was another one, wasn't there, that was popular alongside Broadland? I can't remember.
Well, you
sure it was local, but
the Broadland was one of the first local stations, and it was criticised at the start because people saying, "Well, why do you need it? They've got Radio Norfolk." Well, the reality was Broadland was a music-based station, and Radio Norfolk, which is great, is more speech-based. So there are other stations, you know, that are local, but they're quite small, and nothing has approached or been like Broadland since that time. But you had every town had a station. Every city.
Yeah.
I mean, city had a local station, but as I said, they've all gone.
And am I right in saying Hart bought
Hart didn't buy it. It was Global Radio that bought it. So Global Radio owned lots of brands.
Yeah.
And those brands included Hart.
Yeah.
And they bought up a multitude of local stations, and they changed all the station names across the country that were local to the area to Hart. So in 2008, Radio Broadland changed its name to Hart. So the presenters were still the same, and localness continued for a while, but gradually it disappeared. And Hart is they're really good stations. They're incredibly well produced. They have big personalities. They spend oodles of money on research and everything. They are great stations, and still today. But if you want something else, if you want that connection, if you want localness, then they are not it. But if you want a big personality that you know, then they are a good choice, obviously.
Yeah. And you say that was 2008 they were
2008,
but they remained local for a while under that.
Yeah,
but I'm just trying to recall now.
As the rules diminished, then they were able to reduce. So the studios were in Colgate, and so you used to have a newsroom. All your presenters, the accounts team, all those functions of a business existed in that building. And there's nothing now. There's no content. There's no people that are actually broadcasting from this area. And that's what we want to do. We want to create something where you have a connection to the area, as well as feeling enlivened by the product.
Absolutely. So, assuming we've sort of touched on most of the important life events throughout your career, have we? We can perhaps touch on what's coming up.
So what happened with Broadland is that I felt I'd been, I say lucky, but obviously you create a lot of your luck in life, don't you?
Absolutely.
But I had done pretty well. I thought my career gone well in.
Did you get to have your year skiing?
No, never did. I do go every year still, but I didn't have that year. No, I never had a year out. But what I thought I had done in 2022, so 3 years ago, I thought I'd retired. I got involved in helping with local radio, and then I set about 9 months ago. I spoke to Ofcom about Broadland and why I felt there should be a license. There was no advert for the license. You can't just get a license to broadcast. You can broadcast online, through a website, but you can't broadcast on FM or DAB without a license. So 9 months ago, even a year ago, I completed a 40-page document.
But roll back, where did the idea prior to that come from before approaching them?
Approaching them, I got involved with Amber Radio, which was a small local radio station which didn't continue, and I didn't have control of. And so I had that idea, But I just had this concept in my mind that I absolutely wanted to create something with a mission to make you feel good about living in the era today that was vibrant, upbeat and local, that had key presenters that were driven with high energy. And I wanted the sound to be something whereby every time you tune in, it's uplifting. So that means there'll be certain artists that I didn't want playing because they might be great, but they'd be too slow, a bit dull, not have the right tempo or feeling to make you feel good. Because the whole point of radio, in my mind, is that like having a cup of coffee, you feel a bit better afterwards. Like switching on the radio, you feel better once you've listened to it, and you continue listening to it. So I just wanted to produce something that was, the mission is, make you feel good about living in Norfolk and North Suffolk today. And to make you feel good is that you feel a high level energy with the music, and you have a connection with the presenters that you relate to. You get local news, you get a bit of national news. You don't get too many ads. So you can get up to 15 minutes of ads an hour on a big commercial station. Wow. I'm limiting it to 3. But I'm not here. It's not to make money. It's being run not to do that. I'm just want it to break even. That's going to be an achievement, and I believe I can do it with that, with 3 minutes. So I just felt I wanted to do that. So I completed the 40-page application to Ofcom, and because of my experience and what I've done, really I knew what a radio station was and what you needed to do to actually make it happen. They granted me that license, and then I set about getting a team to do it. And the team that I've assembled is, I would say, significantly better than I could have ever hoped for, ever thought I would. But in talking about the concept and what we're trying to do, the principle behind it, they absolutely believe in it. And I have a collection of presenters and people involved that are absolutely passionate about it in the same way that I am, to deliver something that hasn't been around for a while, to deliver something that you think actually can hold a candle to the big players.
So before we jump into the team and the present and the lineup you've got, which I know is amazing, but funding, finance, they must need a lot of equipment, a lot of tech, a lot of office space, upfront payments.
You're looking at it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're looking at it. Yeah. So the funding for it, we're doing it as tightly as possible. So we don't and cannot afford to have property and a studio. No. So everything in the modern world of radio, you can create a radio station where people broadcast from their home in studios like this. And we provide some equipment. They do it live. That's get links to our server. Our server is connected to our Kiva with all the transmitters and to all smart speakers and etc. like that. So it can be done. So the funding initially is possibly not as much as you think. The problem is the funding on a continuous basis is quite hard. So and I've pleaded poverty to all the powers that be, but unfortunately I've negotiated a great contract with Arkiva, which own the 11 transmitters we're going on. So I won't disclose what it is, but it's a good contract, and I'm pleased that they are working with us.
Does it cost much?
Yes.
Yeah. And does it cost them much because they've already got the hardware and infrastructure set up?
No, it's with them. Of course, it just takes up bandwidth. Yeah. For them. And actually, the incremental cost to them is very little, but they have a business model that they have to do, and they'll turn around and say, yes, but we could have someone else in paying and taking up that bandwidth. So it's still hard to negotiate a contract. And obviously I can't say what it is, but it's a lot of money. That's the biggest cost. And then you have to pay presenters. You have to pay royalties, PRS and PPL. And generally speaking, it's a bizarre system, radio, because you play the records of musicians and they come along and say, please play my music. It's almost like, so you want me to pay you to play your music and you want me to pay you to advertise you, because that's what it's doing. But that's what happens. That's a strange word. So PRS and PPL have to be paid. And then you have license fees for software that we use. So we have to have a playout system. We have to buy other services like the national news that we get in from National News Hub. We have to buy in that.
And is that written and you have to record it, or is
we buy in.
You buy the voice.
They do it.
Yeah.
So that they provide the service to many local radio stations across the country. If you're in Global or Bauer, obviously they have their news team that do it. They have a team.
Yeah.
But we don't.
Can you get to choose the accents or? No. Well, that's coming because you can stick something in AI and it doesn't have to be a real voice.
I hadn't thought about AI to change the accent, and I'm not sure.
Norfolk
twang. As much as I love Norfolk, it's great, but I'm not sure I'd want a strong Norfolk accent on.
No.
In fact, you wouldn't want, even if you were in Essex and you had an Essex station. I was managing director of Essex FM, but we didn't put people on with Essex accents. So accents are great, but it restricts you. Imagine having a station in Newcastle and you put a strong Geordie on.
Oh, absolutely.
Half the population would be able to understand it.
Yeah.
So,
well, no, we obviously, with our phone systems, we set up and can pre-record via AI all sorts of accents. And the idea is obviously keep generic, but some people actually request certain accents. Some of our clients actually request certain accents, and we can do it. So I'm sure it's coming your way for the news.
Would that help with my trying to learn the French language, which I'm doing, or something?
Quite possibly, yeah. It was actually topical at the moment. I heard on the radio yesterday, there's a train line up in Scotland using, it's not AI, it's using a voiceover artist's voice for we are closing the doors, we're opening the doors of the train. And it's it's Scotland wide, and her voice is being used, but she never got paid for it. So she's now suing the company that has her voice on it. And it's quite funny. I listened to it on the radio yesterday. But that is going to come where, I've usually got my smart glasses on, and you can change, because they're constantly talking to you or reading your message back, but you can change the voiceover to be of celebrities or certain accents and certain... Yeah. So I'm sure it's coming to radio.
That's a different world, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah. I wonder if there will be anything, any way that AI might affect or come into play in radio. I can't think of anything on the top of my head. But
I want to change your voice of a presenter. So the voices are really important and recognisable. So, and we have what I believe, some really golden voices.
Oh, yeah.
So some you might not even know the names of, but they're people that I know that have only recently got involved. I wouldn't want to change them at all.
Well, you say that. Even like these mics here, they have noise suppression and some sort of AI touch up to the voice. So who knows? Maybe if they are pre-recording in some instances or beaming in live, then there is some sort of AI technology involved there somewhere. But yeah. So lineup.
So the lineup is amazing, and as I said, it's only last week that it's improved even further. So our plan initially was to broadcast from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. That's all I could fund. And the lineup, we're now actually going to broadcast 6:30 a.m. until 10 p.m. When I say broadcast, that means live presentation.
Yes.
It's still a 24 hours a day station, so you're still going to get music, national news overnight. So it's still going to sound like a station, and you'll get idents like "This is Broadland," But in terms of live presenters, it's 6:30 until 10 p.m. at night. So that's quite amazing. And so it starts with Rob Chandler, who is a very well-known presenter. He was on Broadland, then Heart. He was on with Chrissy Jackson, who I'd love to get back on air, but she's very, very happily retired and doesn't.
Well, if you're watching, Chrissy, we would love to hear your voice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would be great. But I have tried. But
I'm sure
she's very happily retired.
Perhaps just a guest appearance.
And getting up in the morning is not is not to everyone's taste, is it?
No.
So I completely understand it. But obviously I'd love to have her. And that's so Rob is doing his usual thing. And I did a Teams call last week, and as I said to all the presenters, I don't want you to be presenters like you have been in the past on the big stations, or indeed on small stations where you're restricted. On this one, I want you to be authentic presenters. And I told them, as authentic, that means genuine and real, relatable. And I want you to be characters. So I want to get that sense from you. I don't want, this is presenter. That's just, anyone can say that song is this and this song is that. Yeah. I'm not interested in that. I want some element of content. And presenters who have predominantly lost their jobs in the industry over the last 10, 20 years as consolidation has happened, because when Bauer Global put in a presenter across one brand, then all those local presenters are out of work. Yeah. So there's a lot of presenters out of work, which is really disappointing. And part of me that wanted to do this, I want to give something back. And what I'm also going to be doing, sorry, I'm rambling around the point now, but what I'm also going to be doing is for the business, and I've told the presenters this, I'm going to start handing out shareholding of the business as it grows to the people that are contributing, because they're doing so much for not a lot. Mm-hmm. And I want them to get some benefit. So I hope it will be worth something. I believe it will be a success. And I want to actually give away shareholding in the business. And the company name is Orwell Radio Limited. Mm-hmm. So they will have a piece of that. The key people that are really putting in. So Rob is on breakfast. So he's starting, when we launch, it's 7 a.m. the start. But thereafter it is going to be starting at 6:30. And he goes on till 10 a.m. each weekday. Then we have Jono Woodward, who's ex-Broadland, ex-Heart, again, locally well known in the area. He is also the program controller, so he's doing all the setup work for all the presenters for me. And absolutely fabulous work that he's doing. I can't praise him enough. And then I started thinking wider in terms of the type of people I wanted, and I felt that because Radio Norfolk, the BBC Radio Norfolk, had reduced their local content, that meant several presenters had come off BBC Radio Norfolk. And I've been having conversations with some, and one of them was Stephen Bumfrey, and he was on Radio Norfolk. He also was previously, in years gone by, on Heart as well. An incredibly strong presenter. I persuaded him to get involved. He couldn't be more excited about it now. Has a good following, and he's on between 1 and 4 o'clock. And he's doing some of the shows that he did before. One Foot in the Groove is what he did on Norfolk. So he's doing that show. And then for Drive, we have a combination of presenters, so not all week. So the first 2 days of the week, again, which I'm incredibly pleased about, is Hannah Clarkson, and she was the Heart East Anglia presenter up until just a couple of months ago, when they finally got rid of the last show that could be dinged local. And so therefore she's well known. Now she can't publicise this yet, and she can't post anything, she can't do anything until we launch on Monday.
So this can't go out until Monday.
This can. So we have named her. We've named her online, but she
because I'm
can't...
hoping to rush this through today and get it out.
We
for the
can
weekend,
say that
so,
Hannah Clarkson is on air.
Great.
From Monday, but she is restricted in terms of her contract, in terms of being able to publicise anything on her social media channels. So all her followers, and there are many, don't know that yet. So they soon will. They'll know on Monday.
Great.
And we have another Heart presenter who is Gareth Wesley, and he mainly worked in the Chiltern area on Heart, but again a quality top level presenter. And then as of last week, which I didn't think was going to happen, I was contacted by someone who used to work for me in the 2000s, who was on Broadland, then SGR, then Essex FM, a big voice, and a golden voice in my opinion, Chris Skinner, and he is going to be doing 7 till 10. And I'm overwhelmingly happy about that. And he is passionate about the product. Has looked at many stations coming along, and he was retired. He's much younger than me. I don't understand how he's managed to get retired like this, but he's got a business. He runs a business as well. So he really didn't need to. He doesn't need to do this. But the project and listening to me talk about it meant I've got to be involved. And so as of last week, he is, and I'm delighted. Now he'll be on Monday to Thursday evenings, so that lineup continues. But then when it comes to Friday evening, we have another amazing, what I think is brilliant, because I've got an ex-Vibe FM presenter now with Glenn White, and he was a presenter on Vibe, and he was the program controller of Vibe. He has a great following as well, and we're actually going to do Friday night Vibe.
Vibe, yeah.
He's also going to do Saturday night Vibe, which follows Rob Chandler's Floor Fillers program. So that's going to continue. And what I'm going to do with those Friday evenings and Saturday evenings is, because they are more, obviously they're going to be a bit more upbeat, because they're sort of things that get you on a dance floor, that make you move. I'm going to make those programs. I want to make people have an appointment to listen. So it's okay just switching it on. Oh, that's just Broadland, isn't it? I want them to think, I want to listen to Rob. I want to listen to Stephen Bumfrey. I want to listen to Vibe, Friday Night Vibe. I want to listen to Glenn White. And with those evening programs, I'm going to run them ad-free, so that people have it on at home in the evening with guests or whatever. They can have that instead of Spotify or whatever it might be. So all I ask is for people to try it. That's all. So I'm going to run those Friday and Rob's Floor Fillers and the Friday Night Vibe and the Saturday Night Vibe ad-free, to encourage people to say, actually, you know what, I can have this on it. It's not interfered with by adverts. At home in that Friday and Saturday evening. It's a nice thing. Yeah. It's not something another station.
In terms of viewing or listening figures, predominantly what is presumably it's drive time, is it? Or drive home?
What, in terms of the spread?
Yeah, I just don't know what it is.
Well, just
do most people listen, commute? And how do you track that, I guess?
It's complex, but in terms of listening figures, just before I say that, so the weekends though, I've got another Radio Norfolk presenter on, which is Georgie Jameson. Yeah. So she's known. And also Chris Skinner is doing a show, Jono Woodward was doing a show. So it's a really, really strong weekend lineup as well. But in terms of listening figures, this is a complex area.
Yeah, go on. I've probably jumped into something.
It's a complex area, because you can find out how many listeners you got when they're clicking online. But you can't tell how many people are listening to that, because there might be one, it might be in a company, it might be in a factory. So therefore it's difficult. You've got to extrapolate. It's a bit like the press who say that 2.2 people read a newspaper. it's difficult to know.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. So you can do that when it's online. But for other listening, FM, DAB, you absolutely cannot. And the only way of doing that is you have to pay into a very expensive system. It's called RAJAR, R-A-J-A-R. I can't remember what it stands for, Radio Audience Joint Research, something or other. So that is a system which is subscribed to by the BBC and commercial radio. It's published every quarter. It'll take you 6 months to a year to get any data out of it, but it's very expensive. So we won't be in that initially. So we won't know exactly. We will have to just judge it by what we're getting online. We're also going to be broadcasting through smart speakers as well. And that's the big change in radio listening. So FM, which is, I wish we were on FM, but you can't get an FM license. They haven't been issued for decades.
Right.
They're not. They're just dying away. Now, radio listening on FM, of all radio listening, less than 25% now listen on FM.
Do they really?
46% listen on DAB. Smart speakers, 25%. So smart speakers are just continuing to grow, and they will be the way in the future. And if you went 15, 20 years, there probably won't even be DAB. There'd be some other technical marvel that's going to come along.
Speaker built into the car.
There's going to be some form where you'll
I always assume smart speakers were just linked to DAB, but
they're not.
No,
it's a separate signal. No, a separate signal.
Interesting, because at home, obviously, it's smart speakers. The car, for some reason, my car, although quite modern, has just never been reliable on DAB. So I've always just stuck to FM, and I never really looked at or played around with it enough to suss it out. But.
You can't listen to Broadland on FM. You'll be able to listen to it on DAB through smart speakers, through an app, MyTuner app, and obviously through our website platform. But that's the way that it will be, and it is that is the way it's going into, and that FM figure of listening, 25% of all radio listening, is going down every survey. Every survey. It is the nature of it.
Yeah.
As much as I still like to be on it.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure it's a bit new to you as well, having not done it for a while. In terms of where your listeners are, because presumably that's changed quite dramatically over the last few years. This show has been a nightmare to everyone. So, well, how many subscribers have you got and stuff like that? What channel? It's on 6 different channels, and yeah, I can see the viewing figures, but they don't all view the whole thing. Some of them are an hour long, and how do you answer that question sometimes? But also, we're so niche. We are, the title is Norfolk, so we're never going to get worldwide viewing figures to compare with those, and it's business related. So no one's going to listen who hasn't have an interest in that and who isn't local. So. As I said to you, all our listeners are going to be A, local, and B, interested in some way in business. So
no, completely. It's not an easy thing, but we know we're on to a good thing because we've been doing social media for a while now. So there's a bit of LinkedIn, but it's predominantly Facebook. Facebook is, whilst that's not the younger generation, we're targeting an audience
it's your audience
of the 35 plus. Yeah. So people over 40 are Facebook. They don't tend to be TikTok.
Bizarrely, our audience as well is predominantly Facebook. I don't know why. I think we're getting 1,000 views per episode easily on Facebook, but YouTube and the Spotify's are in the double digits. So yeah. So we've done a lot of work on Facebook. We're posting every day. Videos created. Stephen Bumfrey's done some great videos, and we'll continue doing that. And we've built up to date I think it's gone past 1,400 followers before we launch. So we haven't been able to publicise a lot of our presenter line, like Hannah Clarkson, for example. So it's got a long way to go, but nonetheless, before going on air, it's at least getting some publicity. And I haven't actually done a press release. I've been contacted by the press directly
because they heard that Rob Chandler and Stephen Bumfrey are coming back. And so we've been in the EDP Evening News a couple of times. Once with it was the setup, and two, having publicised the launch date. So we're getting, they want to know.
Yeah.
So there is a desire for people to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's always going to be difficult for us to let people know that it's there to tune into. But you will see the name Broadland appear on your DAB radio, not on an FM, but on a DAB radio. So you might think, oh, what is that then?
Well, anyone over 30 is going, oh my God, it's back.
Yeah. And there is that. And it's surprising, even because it disappeared in 2008, but some children were taken on Black Thunder Rise to school or whatever. So even some, even
just
that
trying to
happens.
think, my kids are 21 and 23. Sorry if I got that wrong. Might be a year old. Would they remember it?
Would
I'm
they
sure
remember
they
it?
would, yeah.
I'm not sure. So it's 2008.
Yeah, but they're born 2001, 2002, so...
It might be a struggle at that age. But anyway, I just think it's going
but
to...
interestingly, on that younger generation, they're all almost anti anything new and modern these days. They're all into the oldies and the old music, and it's bizarre. How there's almost like an anti-movement of change, and they are looking to the past for these things.
Well, the policy of the music is predominantly what I think would be right, to create, in quotes, the go-to radio station, because you can tune in, and if you tune on dial, you can just listen to just 60s, just 70s, just 80s.
Yeah,
you can fine-tune your listening, but there's no local content. There's no look. So the offering that we have is the local is very important to us. And so if you want that connectivity with a presenter talking to you and getting local names and references, having local advertisers on, then we are a different proposition. And our music proposition is predominantly 80s through to today. So there's a lot of 80s, 90s and thousands. So that means that we would play some of the big bands of the 80s, but there will be some odd inserts of 70s as well. So there's still one 70s song per hour.
Oh, so you've actually mapped out exactly
It's been my mapping of what you actually do.
Yeah.
And the 70s that I've selected, bear in mind that's my era, so I was born in 1960. So David Bowie was my go-to. And he's a great example of a timeless song. Yeah. And it's timeless because my daughters love it, but they weren't born when he did it, when he played these songs. So he's quite unique. So there's many 70 songs which we're going to play, but they have to be deemed timeless. Yeah. Now there are some artists which are not timeless, and that might disappoint some people, but I won't say who they are, but they're ones I've ruled out because you immediately go back to that era and think that's that song. Yeah. And it's upbeat music. So it's got night and day in it. It's got shade.
Probably, I guess, from input from the presenters. But how are you policing what does come on or doesn't come on from the modern era? Because obviously it's no good just using your taste. And
yes. Well, that's been introduced by Jono Woodward, because he's a program controller. So yes, but yesterday I asked him, so Jono, are we playing these two songs? I want to make sure. So I test him each time. So I selected two songs which I really liked, and that was Old Style, which was Flock of Seagulls, Photograph of You. Instant, yes, that's on the list. Are we playing The Pony Club? Now that's a song that was released 2025 first out in...
Is that the Pink Pony Club?
Yes, Pink Pony Club. Sorry, yeah. The Pink.
See, I'm up to it.
You're up to it, and that's on.
That's on. Hell, that's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, so would you put an Ed Sheeran song on? Now, I would put some of his songs on. Yeah. So to give you an idea of scale, if you look on YouTube, the Pink Pony Club had 69 million views to that video. It's huge. Take an Ed Sheeran song, 3 or 4 billion views. Billion. It's difficult to miss. So George Ezra, another more contemporary type rhythm, nice feel to it song. So you'll play those as well as playing a bit of the old. And it mixes really well. It's surprising, you know. But if you had something quintessentially older that you refer to a style, and I'll say what it is now because it might upset some people, I won't play the Bee Gees, okay? Because it's a disco era, nothing wrong with that, but the screech and the sound is distinctly that. And they're great songs, well produced, but they don't fit in with the feel, the vibrant feel of Broadland.
I'd have to disagree on that one. I really would.
And many will.
Yeah, exactly. It's a personal thing, isn't it?
And you have to remember, much like football, where every spectator is a better program controller, is a better referee than the referee.
Of course they are. Yeah.
Every person who's outside believes that what their choice is right.
Yeah.
If we did program to one particular taste. If you did my music taste to the albums that I've got at home, it'd be a disaster. If we did it to yours, no disrespect, it would be a disaster. Any one individual is a disaster.
Yeah.
And that's to say we're not putting the Bee Gees on day one. That's not to say if we get a lot of feedback from people saying, can we play this? We can play it because we can change.
Yeah.
Unlike a big station where they're set.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is we
I'm just surprised you chose them as an example.
That was an example.
But it's I don't know.
But you understand the era they're from.
Yeah, but all the more reason, and it does kind of seem to fit in with other genres and other. I don't know. I think that would be the last example I would think of.
I'll be delighted to be proven wrong. And
don't take mine.
I'd be very happy to change anything. And what I've said to the presenters, I said, this is your station. I want you all to say, this music should be on, this music should be off.
You've got to hear from other people.
If you've got something where you feel that we're not doing it right, tell me. Tell Jono, because we want to make it absolutely right. And so I'm a firm believer in the cooperative offering and making the radio station absolutely right. I'm not interested in complete autocratic. So just because I've declared that doesn't mean that changes. I'm happy to be proven wrong. You learn throughout life, and you learn by what you do well, and you learn by your mistakes.
It's such an interesting concept, isn't it? Because you just don't know really because times move on from us, you know, and we don't know if your target audience has got any younger or changed, you know, or if you should target a different target. I don't know, but it's.
But I mean, we're not playing 60s, for example. Now, there'll be some saying, "Oh, you should." We're not playing 50s, so we don't go back and play. You know, if you go back far enough, so we don't play the crooners or stuff like so. Dean
Even
Martin's.
if it's a timeless one.
What? Name one for me.
I don't know. Oh God, no, I couldn't. I'm absolutely useless with music, but it's.
I'd be very happy to listen to much music that we won't put on air. And actually, I would play music at home that we wouldn't put on air. So if I went back in my time. Would I play? So I've got and as an example, I'm thinking of something slightly more extreme, like X-Ray Specs, big band in my school era. John Fox, though. I mean, I love it. I wouldn't put them on. No.
I'm trying to think of a really like well-known 60s is some of the Beach Boys and the.
Yeah, and there's some I like. So, for example, Roy Orbison, Pretty Woman. Yeah. You know, that's a great song, but you've got to draw a line somewhere.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So do you play?
Well, I think, do you need to draw a line? Do you say right, no 60s blanket, or do you just say, look, we might have the odd one in there? And
well, you know,
But I guess you got a lot to choose from, haven't you?
Anything is possible, but
Yeah.
you've got to have some sense of what you're trying to create. So this is Broadland for 2025.
Yeah.
If you imagine Radio Broadland launching in 1984, it played only 15 years of music.
Really?
Well, think about
Yeah.
it, because you got think about that. That went back.
Oh, sorry, no, I thought you meant
sorry.
they only went back 15 years. No.
Yeah, so if you go 1984, so they went back about 20 years
Yeah.
in terms of music.
Yeah.
Imagine that now. So if I launched today a station of the same type,
Yeah.
so
What have we got to choose from in the last 20 years?
We'd only play from 2005.
Yeah, Christ. Can you imagine it? Yeah.
I mean, that would be a bizarre concept,
It
wouldn't it?
would, wouldn't it? Yeah.
But if you want the younger audience, the young ones, then that's what you do.
I actually disagree with that one because, as I said, from what little I know of my kids and their friends, they're all into the old ones. You know, and
Yeah.
by old ones I mean like 80s, 90s, and onwards. Maybe not 50s, 60s, but 70s.
But it's a very personal.
Oh, it is.
personal
Yeah, it all
thing.
is, isn't it?
All I ask is people, okay, tune in, let me know.
Mm.
Send us a message on Facebook, but tune into the station.
I've got to move on because we've got to touch on the advertising side of it. And I know you said you're not going to be pushing massive advertisement, you just want to break even, but the fact is you've got to break even. And the other thing is a lot of our listeners are going to be keen to want to support it, I'm sure, us included. What's the process? What's the benefit? I know you can't give listening figures yet, but
the benefit is being part of being associated with something local.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing this. I don't expect to break even in the first 6 months at all, and I'm going to fund that. But in order to just get close to it, there's two forms of advertising. One is a sponsor, and a sponsor is someone who sponsors a programming product or a segment or a show. So you could sponsor breakfast or drive or mornings or the weather or traffic and travel or Saturday breakfast or One Foot in the Groove and all those, or Saturday Night Vibe or whatever it might be. You could be a sponsor, and if you sponsor, then you're treated like a supporter of the station, and you go on the front page of our website with a link to their website, and it's very important to us to have sponsors, and so you'll get the product on air, but you'll also get the online presence, and we'll do a social media post for you as well. So there's a bit of a digital footprint as well as the on-air stuff. And then there's the advertising, which we create a 30-second advert. We don't do it. We give it to a production company, don't make any money out of it, charge very little, a fraction, a fifth of what a big station would charge in terms of producing a 30-second ad. And once you've made that ad, as long as it's not time dependent, so for example, come down to the store this weekend, we got a sale on, well, that's not going to work in a year's time, is it? Yeah. So, but if you have a generic ad that promotes your brand and what you do and what you're good at, then you can use that whenever you want to. And then we charge a very small fee. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about numbers on this.
Do you know what actually we can do? We're all hopefully business listeners and owners, and I think it's important to.
Well, sponsorships range from £250 to £500 a month. If I give you an idea of scale, £500 a month. The last time I sold a breakfast sponsorship on a big station, I did it about 10 years ago, 11,500 a month. This is a small. This is a launch, so you've got to expect less. So between depending on what the product is, between £250 and £500 a month gets you all that sponsorship package. And then advertising, we create a commercial and can do one for £125. And then thereafter, we just charge £4 each time it's played.
Wow, that's actually really reasonable. Yeah.
But we're doing it. If I was charging,
even back in 2009, I think when it was still called Broadland, we were advertising. I think my spend was about £2,500 a month.
But if someone was spending, if someone was spending
Broadland, this was. So
if someone spent a couple of thousand on Broadland a month, it would sound like they own the station.
yeah.
Because they'd be so present in every aspect. And of course, you can do sponsorship, or you can do spot advertising, or you can do a combination of both. Depends on what you want to do. But we'll work hard trying to do that. We're keeping the costs low because, what I didn't say, I'm doing this for no fee. So I'm running it, funding it, but I'm not being paid. I wonder why I'm doing it every day. But then every day I think, this is amazing. So I have that.
Something else has cropped up quite a lot consistently with people sat in that chair are, that conversation about retirement and how none of us ever want to do it, because I, for one, have known lots of people who've uttered those words and are no longer with us, my father included. And I just don't believe in that word. So I think the benefit to you is going to be, you're now going to be occupied with this for the next 5 plus years, and it's going to be a thrilling 5 years, I'm sure of it. It really is. And that's the benefit you've got to keep in your mind. And it's a reason to wake up every morning, and like you say, you are giving back to the community. You really are. Yeah,
no, I think so. I think it's important for as you age, like you said, you've got to be physically and mentally fit. So the brain as a muscle needs to be exercised. This is doing that. And I also do other, I do a bit of coaching on the side as well. So I've got a couple of people, so I've got a bit of coaching that I do in terms of, because one of the skills that I developed over the years was managing people and becoming something. And because the background I came from and how I evolved into it, then I said once I was lucky, but the reality is you have to build into that, and you have to build those skills. Because I was the person when I first left university and I went to KPMG, I was frightened to pick the phone up because someone might hear me talking on the phone. Whereas now I like to stand up and speak to a crowd. It's changed.
It has,
It's moved on. So we're going back to the sponsorship. So we desperately need, not desperately, what we really need, sponsors and advertisers to maintain it, because the maintenance of the station means because it keeps growing. There's 100% chance it will continue to grow. That's what will happen. What I've got to do is keep funding it by sponsors and advertisers just to keep it growing. And it will continue to generate more and more publicity.
Well, as I said, you certainly got our support. We will speak to you. But if any of our listeners want to support it, how would they best find you? What's the website?
The website is playbroadland.co.uk.
Playbroadland.co.uk. I'll try and flash that up on the screen.
.uk. The Facebook page is Broadland Radio, and anyone can contact me, and mine is bob.norman, that's my name, at playbroadland.co.uk.
Again,
so it's the playbroadland.co.uk, so it's bob.norman, and that'll come directly through to me.
Brilliant. As I said, I'll try and post those in the description as well, and get this out before your launch on Monday. That'd
be fabulous.
Bob, I wish you all the best for this. I'm sure you don't need wishing well. It's already got such a great momentum and a lot of talk. So I can just bid you all the best of luck. If anyone does want to support Bob and this amazing journey, please do get in touch and support them.
Well, thank you very much.
I really appreciate it. Thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you.
The Norfolk Business Show with Danny Snelling. Sponsored by MT Comms.
Just a quick word from me. Absolutely thrilled with the response and feedback we've had so far. It really has been so positive. We're going to continue with it. I do just need to ask you all, please, just to take that 1 second to click the subscribe, like, follow button, share them. Just do something for me, because we're never going to be monetized. We're not going to make money from this show, and that's not our intention. We're a local Norfolk show, so we're never going to get those worldwide viewing figures that need to monetize channels. It's not about that. We genuinely are just trying to give back to the business community in Norfolk. So please do that favour for me. It will just increase the visibility of those guests we have on the show, so they get more impact from it. And who knows, if you're a future guest, then you'll get the benefit of that as well. So please do that for me. Obviously, we're sponsoring it from MT Comms. I'm not doing this out of the goodness of my own heart, but please do keep us in mind if we can help with anything IT related, Office 365 support, cybersecurity, 365, that sort of thing. We also do telecoms, mobile, CCTV. There's loads of stuff we do. Just reach out to us and ask us if you can help with anything.